Hi everyone, I'm just making this video to talk about my Invisalign journey. I'd wanted Invisalign for as long as I can remember. I started researching it about, 5 or 6 years ago when it was quite new in this country and really unheard of. And I used to sit on the internet for hours just trying to find any bit of information. And as well, back then, it was really hard to find out how much it was going to cost. No one wanted to admit what they paid for it. None of the dentists would display it on their websites and tell you what the average cost was going to be. They all just said, come in for a consultation, it's free, we'll tell you how much it's going to cost. And I was always really reluctant to do that because I didn't want to invest my time into going in for a consultation and saying, oh yeah, you'll be a really good candidate for it, and then them tell me it's going to be £6,000 and I would just not be able to afford it, and then I would have gone through all of that, got my hopes up, all for nothing. So I held off for such a long time because I was just like, it's going to be too much money, I just don't know if it's worth it. I was just talking myself out of it. Of course it was worth it, the money is well spent if it's something that makes you so unhappy, but it was going to be a large amount of money, and that's why I kept pushing it to the back of my mind, I guess, because I didn't want to fork out so much money. In 2011 I actually went for a consultation with a dentist in London, just like in the Angel area. And I just remember this dentist, she wasn't very nice, she wasn't very friendly, she was just incredibly critical of my teeth. I mean, fair enough, you're going there because you're unhappy with the way your teeth are anyway, but she just made me feel really shitty about it. And I didn't like her. Again, I came away without a price, so I still didn't know how much it was going to cost. And she just really put me off. And she didn't give me very good information, as it turns out, either. She really just kind of brushed over everything. She seemed a little bit amateur, to be honest. So again, I was told it was going to be around £4,500. She couldn't say for definite whether it was going to be more or less than that. So I left that consultation feeling just a little bit down on it, and I kind of once again pushed it to the back of my mind. And then I really started thinking about it very seriously again when I moved to where I am now, and I decided, this time I need to do it. I just need to get it over and done with, start the process and see how I go. So last year I went for my first consultation at a dentist, and they were really thorough, but the complaint that I have is I came away from that feeling quite overwhelmed and a little bit deflated, because the person I'd had the consultation with wasn't actually an orthodontist, she was just a dental nurse. So she went through the options, she discussed my teeth with me, and I mentioned that I had an impacted tooth up in the palate of my mouth. My canine never came through, so it was actually still up in the palate, and it never came through and pushed my baby tooth out. So as soon as I mentioned that, it obviously sent alarm bells off with her, and she suddenly went back on things that she said. She was like, you can't really have Invisalign with an impacted tooth, because once we start moving your other teeth, if the roots of them hit that impacted tooth, they could end up dying and falling out. So of course I was completely freaked out, thinking, oh my god, I don't want my teeth to fall out. That would be like the worst thing that could happen. I would rather just live with them being a bit wonky than them falling out of my mouth. So she then went on to say that also Invisalign wasn't going to be a good option for me. I would really be better off, well, not better off, in fact she ruled Invisalign out completely and said that Invisalign won't work for me, and insisted that I would need to have fixed braces for about 18 months to 2 years was the time that she quoted. So I was thinking, oh my god, my I went in there thinking my teeth weren't too bad and I just needed a little bit of movement, to coming out feeling like, oh my God, I'm going to have fixed braces on my teeth for up to 2 years. When I had a very face-to-face job at the time. I mean, I still do, but I was in a slightly different job back then, where I would spend all day, every day, speaking to new people on a one-to-one level, where they were just across the other side of the table to me. So it's not even like you're standing back and no one would notice. I was thinking that's all they're going to be looking at, is going to be the fact that I have braces on my teeth. Even though she said, oh, they're very discreet, we put clear bits in the middle, the ones that are actually fixed on the teeth will be clear, so people won't really be able to notice, and they give you the little demo set of teeth and show you with the braces on them. And I was like, no, I'm sorry, I don't agree. I think they are still quite noticeable, and for my personal choice, this isn't what I wanted. So I was really, really upset that she'd ruled out Invisalign completely. She also said that before any kind of braces would be fitted, that impacted tooth absolutely had to come out. She said that they probably wouldn't do that on the NHS, therefore I would have to self-fund the operation. Depending on whether I needed local or general anaesthetic was going to change the price again. So she quoted me, I think it was between £1,200 and £1,800 to have that tooth removed. Plus she was saying that my braces would be around £4,300. And then when all is said and done, I would obviously need to have my baby tooth taken out and an implant put in, which was going to be around another £2,000. So I walked out of that consultation and got in the car and almost cried, because I was just so upset about everything that she said, and the cost was just mounting up. At this point it was over £8,000 thereabouts for the whole thing, and I was thinking, oh my God, for something that I was thinking, I hope it's around £3,000, to it suddenly jumping up to £8,000 and it not even being the braces that I wanted. I was just really, really upset. And I remember coming home, and I remember my boyfriend coming home that evening and me saying, yeah, it's not really good news, it's gonna cost like £8,000. But the fact of the matter is, not only was I unhappy with my teeth and not being as straight as I would have liked, the main reason that was pushing me forward was the baby tooth. When I was young and they investigated as to why that baby tooth hadn't fallen out, and they did an x-ray and they saw the impacted tooth up in my palate, my dentist encouraged my mum quite forcefully not to do anything about it, because the option to try and pull the tooth into place would be to fit it with little tiny chains and obviously drag it into position very slowly over the course of a few months or a year, however long it would be. And they just kept playing it up that it would be painful and it would be long-winded and it's just more hassle than it's worth. And they kept saying to me, if you look after your baby tooth, it will last you into your 30s. Now, when you're a young kid, I must have been 11, 12, something like that, to tell them that your tooth will last into their 30s, that seems like light years away. That's ridiculous. I'm that 30, oh my God, that's when I'm old. I'm not going to care if I've got no teeth by then. And so I just, from that young person's perspective, I just didn't think that I would care by the time I was 30 if it fell out. It just seemed so far away that it didn't matter. So of course, when I started looking into this, I was started thinking, oh my God, my tooth really could start loosening or fall out at any point. If I eat something hard, if I bite into an apple, if I take a mouthful of food just on the wrong angle, my baby tooth might fall out and I'm going to be left with this massive gap right in the front of my smile. And I was just really petrified. So I I'm quite careful when I eat things that I never will take a bite out of something on this side of my mouth, because I'm so paranoid that that baby tooth is going to fall out. And so the next problem that comes from that is the fact that my baby tooth is obviously tiny compared to the big canine tooth that should be there. So even if it does fall out, the gap that it's going to leave isn't going to be big enough for an adult sized canine tooth to go in that space that it leaves. So regardless of the fact that I was unhappy with how my teeth were and that they weren't that straight, I was going to be left with a gap that was too small for an implant to go in anyway. So I had to start with braces to space out the teeth to create a gap that was going to accommodate a canine. So all of this was in the forefront of my mind, and I was thinking, it's not even like I can just say, oh, do you know what, £8,000, it's more than I expected, it doesn't matter, I've lived this far with the teeth that I have, let's just leave it. That wasn't even an option for me. So I was just completely trapped, thinking, oh my God, where am I going to find £8,000? Then a few days later, the dental nurse left a message on my voicemail asking me to call in. So I called into the practice, and she said, the orthodontist would like you to come back in. She just wants to have a look at your case herself. We've had a discussion, and she's looked at the x-rays that I've taken and the pictures, and she'd just like to discuss some things with you, because as it turns out, she thinks you might be eligible for Invisalign, and that you also will probably be able to get your impacted tooth removed on the NHS if she refers you. So of course, a little bit of a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow there. I was like, oh my gosh, right, okay. So I went back in and I discussed it all with her, and she said she basically dismissed everything this dental nurse had gone through. So from all the bad things that this dental nurse said about the amount, the fact that I could only have fixed braces, I wouldn't be able to have Invisalign, I was going to have to self-fund the operation for the NHS, she dismissed it all and basically said she'd been talking crap and I could have it done on the NHS. She'd refer me straight away. Hopefully they'd be able to do the operation within a couple of months, and then I can come back and they'll take the impressions and I can start my treatment. So she referred me. It all happened quite quickly with the NHS, which was surprising because I really did think it was going to take a lot longer. I got a phone call to go into the local NHS hospital, and they did some x-rays, and one of the doctors had to look at my mouth, and she said that's fine, that's absolutely fine. They got me to fill out all of the paperwork, and within I think a couple of weeks my operation was scheduled, and I went in. I had the operation to remove this impacted tooth, and that was done. For some reason, I just had lost trust in that dental clinic though. I didn't feel comfortable with what they'd said, and I'd done a little bit more research, and suddenly I'd seen that Invisalign had a different package. I can't actually remember the name of the package now, but it was basically where you didn't have to have both your top and bottom teeth moved, and it was really quick. I think it was something like a 6-month smile. I think that was what the package was, and it was aimed at people that really didn't need much straightening, and it was going to be super quick. And so I looked into another dentist that was close to me, and I went along for another consultation. This time at this dentist, I actually saw the orthodontist right from the word go. There was no dental nurse giving me any information. You just went straight in with the orthodontist. She had a look, they did all the photography, they took some more x-rays, and she said, you're eligible for Invisalign Lite, which is it's obviously just a quicker version of Invisalign. Because I didn't need too much movement, she said I didn't need to go for the full one. Invisalign Lite would do exactly what I needed it to, and it was £2,500. So of course I was like, oh, £2,500. I've already had the tooth taken out on the NHS. It didn't cost me anything, luckily, and the Invisalign Light package was going to be £2,500. So the costs were coming down, and I was just feeling a lot more in my comfort zone over it, and I felt more reassured by this particular dentist actually, and I was a lot happier. So I decided to go ahead. They took the impressions, they sent away all of the impressions to America where the Invisalign braces are made up, and I started my treatment in January of this year. And so I remember the day that I went in to have the little attachments. What they do is they put these little like nodules on a few of your teeth, so when you put the Invisalign trays in, they anchor onto these attachments. And I went in to have these put in, and they do a little tiny bit of filing between your teeth to try and create a little bit of space for the movement of your teeth whilst you're wearing the braces. And I trotted off home with my first set of aligners, or my first few sets of aligners, and they tell you put them in overnight so that the tightest phase of that aligner you're sleeping through. So I don't think I did that. I'm never one for following the rules. So I think that I put them in a little bit early, and I actually didn't find them too uncomfortable. But I'm not going to lie, it's not the most pleasant experience in the world. Those first couple of weeks, especially the first few days that I had them in, I got no respite, whether I was wearing the aligners or whether I had the aligners out. When the aligners were in my mouth, because my mouth wasn't used to having them in there, they were rubbing the side of my tongue, they were rubbing the inside of my gum, the inside of my cheek up here, and it was really sore. And then when I took them out to eat, the attachments that were on the bottom of my teeth, these bottom front ones, were really sharp at the beginning, that even when I was eating or talking without the aligners in, they were scratching the inside of my mouth up completely, again making it sore. So I couldn't win whether I had them in or out, it was painful. And I was finding I was a little bit grumpy the first couple of days at work. My colleagues kept saying, "Are they hurting you?" And I was like, it's not so much like a pain as in an ouchy pain. You're always conscious that there's something in your mouth. You can't get used to it. Your mouth doesn't relax properly because they're just always there. They're taking up space in your mouth that your tongue isn't used to, so your tongue isn't sitting the way that it normally would. So you're lisping. You feel like your mouth is going through two phases. It's either you've got too much saliva in your mouth, you feel like you're going to spit everywhere, or your mouth is so dry you basically just have to keep drinking water and like swishing water around your mouth like mouthwash just to make everything feel normal. And I was just really unhappy, and I kept thinking, oh God, I don't know if I'm ever going to get used to this. Am I ever going to feel normal about it? Everyone says to you, you'll get used to them. Once they're there for a couple of days, you won't even feel them anymore. And I didn't believe that. At the very beginning, I was just waiting for the feeling to go away of being conscious that they were there. And it took quite a long time, to be honest. I think that the dentists obviously are so desperate for you to sign up and go down the Invisalign path. They're not completely honest, but it's not that comfortable is what I'm saying. You have to bear with it. Eventually you do get used to it, and you do start to not notice they're there. The only time that it becomes a pain is when you, at the 2-week point, when you swap trays and you put new aligners in. Obviously your mouth has to get used to it being a slightly different shaped aligner, and you might lisp a little bit when you're speaking and just be a bit more aware of them. For a couple of hours, I think it gets really quick. You get used to it a lot faster than at the beginning. So within a few hours you're back to normal again. But hands down, the one thing that bugged me the most was having to take them out to eat and then brush your teeth and put them back in again. So when you're out in public and you go into a restaurant and you want to have something to eat, you either have to start getting up and going out to the bathroom to take the liners out, or you have to sort of sit there, wait for it to be a little bit more inconspicuous, and then start taking them out yourself. Now, I'm going to be a little gross. Unfortunately, the aligners fill up with saliva, so when you're reaching in your mouth, as if this doesn't look weird enough in the middle of a restaurant, but you really can't be asked to keep getting up and walking to the bathroom all the time to take aligners out. So I just used to wait until there weren't too many people looking and just try to do it as quickly as possible. But as you're pulling the aligner out, so you have to pull from the back teeth as well. So you're putting your fingers right in your mouth to your back teeth, pulling on the back of the aligner from both sides, and then it pops out. I'm sorry, this is gross, but where it fills up with spit, you end up having to kind of suck the spit out of the aligner as you're taking it out, or else you end up with dribble all down your face, which is, let's be honest, not a great look. So that was awkward. And then if you're in a restaurant after you've finished eating, because you're supposed to be wearing the aligners for 22 hours a day, which only allows 2 hours per day for you to have them out to brush your teeth and eat all your meals. It's not very long, really, and I don't think it's all that realistic. I don't think there was many days when I had them in for 22 hours, to be honest. It was probably more like 21, 20 by the time that you've taken them out, eaten something, brushed your teeth and put them back in. And on days where you do go out for dinner or something like that, you don't want to sort of finish eating and then rush off to the bathroom. Obviously you're using a public toilet, bearing in mind that most public toilets, the sink isn't actually in the cubicle, it's out in a communal area. You've got to start brushing your teeth in a communal area. It's not realistic, and I didn't really do that. I would just try and rinse my mouth around with a bit of drink or something and try and pop them back in, or else I'd have them out for a bit longer and then I'd wait until I got home and I'd brush my teeth and put them back in when I was at home. But I think it was also really easy for me to forget that I hadn't put them back in. So when I was at home and I'd eaten my dinner, there were quite a few times that I suddenly think, oh shit, I haven't put my aligners back in, and I'd had them out for like an hour and a half, 2 hours or something. And so it's quite easy to forget. The other thing that I noticed was that overnight, when I had the aligners in, I was grinding my jaw, my teeth, and like clenching my jaw quite a bit. So there was a lot of mornings when I would wake up and like the side of my face would ache, and I'd notice it as soon as I opened my eyes and I was kind of like, I gained consciousness and would be lying there, and I'd suddenly be like, oh, I was sitting there laying there clenching my jaw, and I'd suddenly have to make a conscious effort and think, oh gosh, no, relax your mouth. And I'd been doing that all night, so I would wake up with a really achy jawline. So yeah, they're the bad points of it. It's the inconvenience. So, but by no means am I saying that it should just be, you know, perfect and easy and you just sail through it. At the end of the day, they are braces. If you're thinking about Invisalign or you have Invisalign, you're wanting to do it. It's your choice because you want to get to that end point where you're happy with your teeth. But I think that you just need to understand, if you are looking into it, you really just need to understand all of the points that people don't tell you and all of the things, so you go into it really open-minded and understanding. It's not going to be plain sailing. It's going to be a bit uncomfortable. It's probably going to make you sore. It's probably going to give you mouth ulcers, and you're going to find it a massive pain in the arse. There's no two ways about it, really. So that's kind of the journey. My Invisalign treatment to start with was 8 months long, or 7.5 actually, I think. And so it got to the end of July, beginning of August. I went in and I was just a little bit unhappy with one of my teeth. The wonkiest one is this one to the side here, and it's never sat properly, and so because of the angle it's always sat at, it's made it look like I have a huge chip in my teeth. So I never like smiling in photos, because you would always see where the tooth was sitting kind of side on, there was all this black area where you could see straight through the teeth into the back of my mouth, and so it looked dark, so it just looked like I had a massive chipped tooth, and so I hated smiling. So that was the one that my main aim was on, that was the one that I really wanted to be turned in. And disappointingly, it hadn't moved as much as I wanted it to, so I expressed this to the orthodontist, and she said, that's fine, if you're really unhappy with it, we'll look at doing some refinement. So I was like, yeah, that's fine, okay. Went back in, she took some more impressions, sent them away, and unfortunately at no point had anyone mentioned that refinement was going to be more money. It wasn't mentioned to me. The dentist made a little comment whilst I was in there having the impressions taken, actually, saying something about, she goes, oh, there's just one of the bottom teeth at the front. She said, it can do with coming out just a tiny little bit more. She said, you might as well, it's all within the cost, isn't it? So I was like, okay, fine. So it kind of gave me the impression that this was, I paid a package price for the Invisalign aligners, and I wasn't expecting any of the refinement to cost me more money. And it just bugs me so much that at no point did anyone say, that's fine, if you want that tooth turned in a little bit more, it's not a problem, we can do refinement, but it will be this much more money. No one said anything at all. It's like they deliberately kept it quiet and didn't say anything until after I'd had the impressions done. They'd sent them away to America, and it was kind of too late to back out even if I wanted to. And so I turned up on the day that my new aligners were going to be given to me. I had one more attachment put on my tooth, because obviously all the previous ones had been taken off in a different appointment. So I had one more put back on, and she sent me on my way with my aligners. Nothing was said. I got out of the dentist, I went home, and I think by the time that I got home, there was a voicemail sitting on my phone from the dentist where they said my entire name. They then said that I owed them money, and because I had refinement, it was going to be £500 more. And I was completely shocked, and so then I started feeling just, you know, when you just can't stop thinking about something. By the time that I picked up the voicemail, it was late, they were closed anyway. And so it was just playing on my mind the whole time. I was like, no one said anything. No one said a thing. And even my orthodontist, Cecilia, had implied that it was within the cost. And it feels like they waited until I was too far in, and then they suddenly say, oh, you owe us more money. And so I just felt that the way it was done was really wrong as well. The fact that they left a voicemail on my mobile phone telling me that I owe them more money, that was incredibly wrong. So I had no complaints with their service up until this point. I was just really, really angry at the way that they handled that. And I felt that they should have been a lot more clear, and I'm sure that I'm not the only patient that's happened with either. They should say, that's fine, we can do refinement, but please be aware there's an extra fee for it. Because it's kind of ruined the way that I felt about the service up until now, because no matter what they've done up until this point, there's been no problems, but now this is all that I'm going to think of, and it just really bugs me. So if you are thinking about Invisalign, just be really, really careful about any hidden costs. Make sure that you don't assume anything. If your dentist suggests anything, just double check and say, is this going to be more money? Are you going to charge extra for this? What is actually included? And make sure that you get it all written down, or you get them all, everything just laid out in front of you, so there's no confusion, because I am quite annoyed. The only thing that I'm going to play on is the fact that I also work in the private healthcare sector, and we are not allowed to leave that type of voicemail for people. It's unprofessional. It's not very nice for a patient to pick up a voicemail and be told that they owe more money, or anything. I mean, they, like I said, they mentioned my name, they mentioned my treatment plan, and they mentioned how much money I owe. And I just think, if they've got the number wrong, they've left my full name, what I'm having done, and how much money I owe them for a complete stranger to pick up. Or say, for instance, I lived with somebody and they'd left that voicemail on the house phone, and I didn't want that person to know what I was having done. It's not very professional at all. And so I am going to write to the practice manager and see if there's anything that can be done, because I just feel that I was kind of led astray towards the end there, and I'm really, really not very happy. But here I am. I've done a week of my first aligner, so I've got, I think, 8 more in total to go through. But the orthodontist said that if you're happy at any point throughout the process, then you can stop. You don't have to carry on right till the end of the 8 aligners. But I kind of feel that they've taken the impressions, they've worked out what needs to move. It's just two teeth that they're moving this time. So if I've got 8 aligners, I might as well go through and wear them to the end. What's the point in stopping at 5? Because obviously the last 3 aligners are still going to do something. It's like getting to the finish line and stopping before you've actually walked over. It's just a bit silly. You can say, oh, well, I finished, but I finished a few feet shy of the line. So I'm going to carry on right to the end point, which is going to take me through Christmas. So all in all, from start to finish, the whole process has taken me a year. And I guess we'll see where we end up. Then I just need to start saving for the implant to go in.